Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, so welcome to this episode. I am really excited about this episode because a lot of people talk to me about wanting to stop drinking. They know deep down that they want to stop drinking, but their main concern is that their partner, their spouse, is a drinker, and they have been drinking together, and generally they've been together for a while, and so they're used to sort of dinners with drinks, they're used to Friday nights TV with drinks, they're used to, Netflix and chill and going out and socializing with friends with drinks and having people over for barbecues with drinks. As you can see, everything seems to revolve around drinks, especially if that's what you've been used to. And so I thought it was important for us to maybe talk about that today. And so I'm delighted that my husband has agreed to join this episode because I decided to stop drinking. And of course, it was, for me, a concern that even for the 21 days that I thought I'd stop drinking for, I wasn't really sure how I would do that with my husband still drinking. So I thought it'd be a good conversation for us to have. So I want to welcome a very special guest to me, of course, my husband, Nicholas. So, hi.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much. I feel privileged to be one of your first episodes on this podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you for joining Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. So, okay, so without further ado, why don't we kick off with what were your thoughts when I said to you back in, I don't know, it's probably October, November time, just before I stopped, that I was going to stop for 21 days. What were your initial thoughts on that?
I think there was clear resolution in your mind. You wanted to do it. And because it was for something, it wasn't a vacant and arbitrary decision. It was a cause that you did it for. I think I thought it would be achievable. But I didn't really expect it to last to day 22, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I probably agree with you. I wasn't sure it was going to last beyond day 5, but yeah, exactly. Okay. So, from my perspective, I said I'd stop, and I remember thinking, oh, okay, this could be quite tricky because, it was our sort of go-to. That's what we did. It was our way of relaxing together and laughing and giggling. And I thought, will I be as fun? And even for those 21 days, and how would I feel about it? And I think, from my perspective, I thought you were always very supportive, and you seemed quite, keen to just back me, as you always do with everything that all the whims and things I've decided to do over the years. But I don't know if you can recall, but do you remember how it was for you for those sort of first 21 days?
It's an interesting point because I don't actually remember feeling like I needed to tiptoe round you not drinking. I think there was it was a build up to it. So it wasn't I'm stopping this minute and you didn't pour this glass of wine down the sink. It was, on whatever date it was, the 2nd of October, I'm going to start. And that gives us sort of a week. And I do remember, more than not tiptoeing around you not drinking, I do remember oh, well, this might be my last wine before I stop, or this will be my last gin before I stop, and thinking we're building up to this. And I must try and be sensitive post that moment starting. But I doubt I was very sensitive. I know that I encouraged you to go through magazines and get lots of replacements. We thought replacing alcohol with something else would be a great way of coping with it. And you fell in love with some non-alcoholic gins and some non-alcoholic fizzes and some non-alcoholic wines. How did it make me feel? Initially, I was probably a bit worried because I know how determined you are to achieve, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do what you set out to do. And I thought to myself, if she doesn't do this, it's going to be one hell of a bloody miserable month. If she breaks at the first Friday night hurdle, it's going to be rather miserable. Was there any pressure on me? No. Did I hide my drinking away from you? No. We put all your non-alcoholic stuff into the cocktail cabinet and we made it alongside my gin and tonic. So no, I didn't feel any different. I was more worried for you because I knew if you didn't make the end of target, you'd go mad with yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, for me, so my recollection, it's funny, isn't it, what we both recall, but I didn't even discover those alcohol-free things for at least a few weeks before, a couple of weeks into
Really?
the journey, because I was drinking sort of teas and waters and coffees. That's what I remember doing. But then obviously discovered things like alcohol-free fizz and alcohol-free gin, and that was a bit of a game changer. But you're right, I don't remember. I wasn't, and I know some listeners, if you're listening, you may be thinking, I just wouldn't want to see it. I wouldn't want to see alcohol. If I'm going to stop, that's going to trigger me, or I'm going to make me want to drink. I didn't do that. I sort of.
Remind me, was it in COVID or before COVID or after COVID that you stopped?
It was the 9th of November 2020 that I stopped.
So was that before the final Christmas lockdown?
Yeah, so we were locked down depending on where you lived. Remember, there was that sort of regional.
So when you came back from Kilimanjaro and we went into lockdown, you were drinking then?
Yeah, I was drinking then. Yeah.
And then obviously we came out of lockdown at the end of summer or something, and a little bit of autumn. So you did do Christmas locked down.
So Christmas was announced that everyone would be locked down, or we couldn't travel and do our things that we wanted to do with family at Christmas. But then the next official lockdown was announced just as the schools were going back in January 2021.
Yes, yeah.
And then we were locked down again for a little.
And I think there is an element that, because we are a tight couple, there is an element that we're very comfortable in our home and we're very happy in our little nucleus family. And we'd got used to not commuting, and we'd got used to our daughter being at home and homeschooling. And we were used to just us. So we could morph and flex quite easily to homework, and we didn't have the physical pressures of the outside world, which I think for you particularly, central London, corporate environment, a lot of hosting, a lot of client, that might have shifted how you were at home. But I think it gave you a really good starting block that we were limited in our movement, certainly limited in our influences that make us drink a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I do often sort of think about if it was in what was normal circumstances before, would I have done it? Would it have been more of a challenge, maybe, if I tried to do this a year earlier or something like that? But at the same time, you're still conscious of it, because I remember going out for a meal fairly early on, or going to friends for a meal when we weren't in between the sort of not being lockdown, and just sitting or taking a load of stuff with me and not really
Yeah.
knowing whether we'll actually get on with those friends.
Yes, I remember, and when you talk about how did it affect, I remember the nervousness, bordering on anxiety about those firsts,
mm,
particularly the firsts that I wasn't with you. So
mm,
when you eventually went back to doing something with work, or it was a group you belonged to, or whether it was something with church or something, I remember you being very anxious about, I think it was at a restaurant, and you were ringing the restaurant, and you weren't sure whether you liked what they had, and you weren't sure whether you could have it, and this said low alcohol and no alcohol, and it was like, oh my god, this is going to be a nightmare. But those firsts, our first holiday, I remember you being very nervous on the plane, so we used to pack you little contraband booze bottles, and the firsts, I think, for you were quite tough, and I fact that rubbed off on me. There wasn't much joy in going to the restaurant for supper. We were always nervous about going to friends' houses, and we'd arrive with clanking bags for life full of bloody non-alcoholic stuff. And that was a bit labor intensive. Seems a long time ago now, because things are very different, and a lot more products. But I do remember your firsts. The first night you had to leave home, get on a train, go into London to a restaurant with colleagues, not friends. You were very anxious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the thing, and this is something that takes a bit of time, because you do have to get into your new identity, and it is a new identity fundamentally. You have, for me, I'd been drinking for over 20 years, and all the associations that I'd made over that time.
But just to say for the listeners, I'm going to paint the picture. My wife was not a sozzled drinker. You were what I would class as a normal, moderate drinker. You use the phrase like, "Well, I was drinking for 20 years." Well, we didn't live in a vineyard here, people. We were having a glass with our meals, and we'd have a glass now every now and again, on Saturday nights or something. We might get slightly sloshed, but you weren't. You weren't a pisshead. You were just a moderate drinker. And that, I think, is what then affects your identity when you go out into the world and not be that. You were known for drinking very nice champagne. We met in Spain, so we've always loved a glass of red wine. We're both gin fanatics, so, we liked gin. So your identity is challenged, even though you weren't a heavy drinker, I wouldn't have said.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that. And I wasn't. And I think this is another point to raise, because, again, a lot of people think that they need to have hit a rock bottom, or there needs to be a real reason why they stop drinking. And a lot of people aren't, they're what I would call sort of normal drinkers, in quotes, and there's the term grey area drinker, where if you're not teetotal, i.e. you don't drink, and if you haven't hit rock bottom, effectively you are a grey area drinker. So it's a spectrum. And of course,
it is a spectrum, and it's a very relative spectrum, because one of the things that you always said to me, and I know it affects you when you stopped drinking, was, the clarity, the energy, the better sleep, and everything else that goes with not drinking. But the spectrum, for me to describe you as not a heavy drinker, still affected your mornings. You would, if we had a dinner party or went to a dinner party, you could write your morning off because of the way you began to feel, as you, dare I say, slightly aged. But those effects, everyone's rock bottom or everyone's grey is so grey that it's almost very subjective to each individual, I would say. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I say all the time to clients and to people who I interact with about this subject. It really is subjective. And what I want to get across here is, if you think that life could be better emotionally, physically, socially, in any way, mentally, without alcohol, regardless of how much you drink, you could have a glass of wine a week, right? But if you think it's affecting you in some way, or you think life could be better in some way, then you should absolutely give yourself permission to take a break and see how
I
it
can hear a
feels.
lot of people. I can hear a lot of people listening to this who will be completely in your camp that had to give up drinking in a house of people that drank like you did. And I can also see a lot of people in my camp who are thinking, well, you now have changed completely because you're no longer that person who dances around the kitchen pissed with me on a Saturday night, at midnight, because you're sober, but now you're more energetic. So you're going to need more quality rest and all that sort of knock-on effect to it. So for me, I'm quite laid back, and I am absolutely adamant that it's my role as a husband to support you as you do me. That's what we commit to in marriage. But for a lot of people, I don't think that's going to be an easy journey. So for listeners listening to this, yeah, I sympathize with you. If your best mate, your partner, your spouse, wife, husband has knocked the booze on the head, you can feel guilty, or you could feel isolated, or you can feel lonely. I happened not to, but I listen to a lot of podcasts like yours, and I know that a lot of people can. And a lot of your clients or listeners will be saying, it's really difficult because I live in a house with two teenagers and they both drink, and my husband drinks and my wife drinks. That makes it very difficult, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I thought it was a good topic to talk about. So maybe the next question for you is, obviously this was only going to be a short-term thing. It was only going to be 21 days. That hasn't quite been the case. So as the time went on, did that change how you perceived it, how you felt about? Did you see changes in me that you thought impacted our relationship?
I think with any endeavor like this, it would be the same when you started to train for the marathon, or indeed when you started to train to climb the mountain. There are some aspects of any endeavor that one person does that becomes infectious. What we do in marriage, people influence each other. We, in the same way that we influence our daughter, we influence you. So yes, there were traits that I saw in you after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months that were contagious and were very influential. Primarily that sort of get up and go energy, and that desire to wholesomely rest because whatever happens, it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. That focus in conversation with people, seeing you interact with people post 3 or 4 months of not drinking was completely different. And that's not saying you were gliding through, but there was a glistening about you that wasn't there for a long time, that probably wasn't there in me for many years. But I think energy, conscious knowing about your rest pattern and getting up with energy were very influential on me. And I felt very almost, if I could keep the gin but have that focus and energy, I would have loved it. But of course you can't.
So that's very kind of you to say. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not here to flatter you. I'm just telling you as a team.
I know.
There are other shortcomings, let me tell you, people.
Plenty of those.
Not all roses and beer and Skittles.
Indeed. We can talk about those if you want. So these are all things that I really encourage people to take a break and just see if they see these benefits. And as the years went on, so I'm approaching 3 years alcohol free, and we obviously thought it was going to be 21 days. What would you say the biggest challenge was has been in those 3 years?
That transition, I can tell you exactly what it is. The transition, the tangible transition from fear of succeeding. This is what I saw in you. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but this is the journey you took. The fear of failure or success and the anxiety that goes with that. The acceptance, creation, and living a brand new identity that wasn't based around a traditional perception of you, and then this pride. You are extraordinarily proud now to say, no, I don't drink, thank you. And that's not an aside anymore. That's not, oh no, not for me, I don't drink. That's a very proud, no, I do not drink. And I'm grounded and proud and pleased and evidenced in why I don't drink. And that transition it's palpable, it's tangible.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think it is a journey. It is a journey. And I think people that are in their if you're in your early days of not drinking, or you're about to take a break, just remember it's a process, and you need to really trust the process. And as you go through the journey, you do change, but there are challenges and there are ups and downs, and you do question as well whether this is the right thing to do. And I certainly didn't think that I was going to stop drinking for as long as I have done. There was certainly no forever in mind. I thought I'll do the 21 days, and then 21 days sort of led on, and it's because of all the wonderful things that came my way along the way, which is why I've got to the point now where it'd be like, well, I could have a drink, but why would I want to do that?
Yes. Why would I want to is where you are, and that is, that element. Now you're so grounded in it is what is contagious.
So it was really exciting, I think. So we were going along. I was doing my thing. I was sort of, as you say, running and doing yoga. And then I trained and qualified to be a coach. And then I did my sober club coach training and all of that. And you, from my perspective, were just living you and doing your life, and still with alcohol. And I remember feeling, if I reflect on where I was at the beginning, certainly I was worried that we would maybe find that we haven't got anything in common, or that we were not actually suited to each other, or I remember being bored. That's just a general trend. You will find that when you take a break, you do find yourself feeling a bit bored, because you suddenly realize you have all this time on your hands. And so for me, it was sort of like, okay, well, you're watching telly with a drink in hand. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to read, and I'm going to do something else.
And that's important. I think that's a really important stage. If you deny yourself that, you will live in denial. If you had said, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch him drink, all that would have brought you was more anxiety. Your anxiety didn't come in every day. Your anxiety came when you were going out for things and doing things and meeting people other than me. But had you sat and done that, I'm sure you would have eventually either resented me drinking or given up. You had to consciously say, I need to remove myself from this just for an hour, just for 2 hours, and then come back. And I think that's an important part of it. Look where you are now.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're just thinking, well, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this because of someone else, I'd like you to just think about, where will your life be in the next sort of 5 years, 10 years, if you don't do this, if this is something you think you want to do. And if you think you can't do it for somebody else, what does that really, what does that mean to you? And is there a way of you just thinking about some of the benefits you could see by taking this step? And I think
if you look at the fact that there is nothing, there is no possible way that the role you have as a parent is based on alcohol. The role you have with your school is not based on alcohol. The role you have with your hobbies and skills is not really based on alcohol. Your marriage, therefore, or partnership can't be based on alcohol. We fear it is. You just said it. I'd be worried if I was bored of you, if I saw you sober too many days. You probably are. But I think, nothing that you do is based on alcohol. And the things that we do that are based on alcohol are absolute leisure. they're not crucial. Parenting is crucial. Our relationship with our children's school is crucial. Where we put our effort and our money and our leisure time is crucial. Where we work is crucial. None of that is based on alcohol. So to say I can't do it because somebody in my house drinks, you can do it. You just need a strategy. To say I can't do it because, that means I can't play darts in the pub. Well, you can do it. You just need a strategy to cope with it. And that's what you've shown me. Everything you said, I didn't want to sit there and watch the same crap you're watching while you're pouring gin down here. So I created a strategy, and that was to read. I could be in the same room, I could be in another room, but I would read for that hour to take my mind off it. And I think that's key. And so we mustn't be frightened of that, I don't think. Whatever happens and however you feel, you can't deny it. We can't deny it. You just need a coping strategy, which is why things like Thrive Alcohol Free as a company helps people just put that strategy in place. I'm not advertising you.
So, no, absolutely agree. And it is all about having a plan. And I truly believe that if you are prepped for these situations, you play it forward and you think, okay, if I'm saying to myself, I don't want to drink tonight, play it forward to the next morning. If you did have a drink, how would you feel? What would your reaction be? Versus if you didn't, how proud will you feel and how amazing will it be that you actually achieved it? And maybe have something in place for the morning so that you have something to get up and go for that you're looking forward to, which will then discourage you to drink. And of course, there are lots of tips and tricks that I will share as we keep going through this podcast. And so for me, what was absolutely amazing, and I've been bursting to say it, but I'm going to say it now. We can talk about it. Was that I celebrated 2 years alcohol-free on the 9th of November last year. And then a couple of weeks later, you made an announcement, husband. What was it?
I wasn't pregnant. No, you're right. Yes, I stopped. I stopped drinking and smoking on the same day.
And what was the reason for you to suddenly decide that that's what you wanted to do?
I'd had enough of smoking. I'd smoked for 25 years, cigars, and before that a pipe, and I just literally had enough of smoking. Alcohol was pushing the limits of what people could possibly say was a grey area drinker, and it was beginning to affect the way I perceived things. It affected probably my emotional capabilities and how I managed my emotions. It was beginning to affect I think, clear to say, my relationship with you. It affected the basic skills of patience or compassion. And that was the only cause of it. It wasn't stress at work. It wasn't stress of marriage. It wasn't financial stress. It was just the eventual effect that over grey drinkers get, I think. And I thought nothing is more important. Nothing is less important in my life than alcohol. So enough. I went cold turkey like you did, but I didn't have a 21 day in my head. I had a that'll do me forever now. And it's strange, I think, the way that both you and I went about it. You have complete self-discipline and self-control, and you are a go-getter and extraordinarily successful, and managed to not drink cold turkey while your husband was pouring gin down his neck. I then literally stepped out my little ego bubble into a world that was already alcohol free, which was amazing for me. So I didn't have I can't give up because someone else is drinking in my house. I actually had the opposite of that, is I want to join that club of people that aren't drinking, primarily my wife. I want to be in that world, not this world, which was actually just me. There was nobody else in it. I wasn't commuting to London. I was working for myself. I wasn't particularly seeing many people. You don't go to church and get sloshed. So, it was just me in this little world of intense drinking. So enough was enough. And I called it a spot.
And can I ask, how did you feel about that? And you said it was, for you, it was forever. It wasn't a I'm going to stop for X number of days. What how did you sort of go about it, and what tips do you maybe have for anyone who's listening who's thinking that they're ready to make that step?
Well, living with you, I was probably already under the impression that certain things were going to happen. And if you read a lot of literature, they're going to tell you that you are going to encounter lots of things as your body morphs into this new. Obviously, there's not just the emotional aspect and the habitual in intrinsic aspect, your mental and psychological aspect. There's also the physical aspect of suddenly stopping a lot of sugar getting in your body. And the only thing I found as a side effect of not drinking is I've become mildly more rotund. And I think if you stop smoking and stop drinking on the same day, 12 months later, I'll be 12 months in November, then you can find that the buttons on the shirt are a little tighter than one is used to. But the upside was I didn't have any sleep transition difficulty. I didn't actually have any craving for alcohol because I had decided that it was not important enough to want anymore. That is a mindset. It was a Mind Valley mindset. This stuff is no longer important in maintaining the other aspects of my life. My marriage, my parenting, my work, launching my own company. It's not important enough to feature. I haven't gone through all the firsts yet. I haven't gotten an aeroplane yet. I haven't sat on a beach yet on an all-inclusive 5-star resort where it's on tap. I haven't been to a wedding as a best man and had to speak at a family event. I haven't been to anything that you traditionally, like a 21st, or, I've done Christmas, easy for me. Done birthday, easy for me. But there are some things that I haven't done. So I'm still waiting and I can let you know if we go away at Christmas, how I fare on a 13-hour flight. But I'm not worried about it. And interestingly, unlike you, I haven't got into the non-alcoholic stuff. I literally just substituted everything with a cordial and soda water. I drink a lot of herbal tea now. I cut down on coffee. I don't have a pint of coffee a day. But I have a lot of herbal tea. And in the evening, in an adult's glass, I have a couple of cubes of ice, some cordial, and some soda, and a sprig of fresh mint or something. And I drink a few of those. So I still drink, but I don't trick my mind as it would be for me. I'm not saying, I think it's it works for people and it feels good. I do drink the odd non-alcoholic red wine, but for me, I didn't want to deceive my mind. I wanted to stop that season of my life. I wanted to say that and everything associated with it is done. And so everything was new. Going out of the house for the first time was new. Going to the restaurant the first time was new. Meeting anybody was new, because I didn't want to associate anything with that drinking. It's a very strange concept, but there'll be people out there who go, yeah, I don't want to, the dog's died, so I don't keep the dog's bed in the corner of the room to remind me. I'll know what the dog is like. So I get rid of all that paraphernalia. And that's what I've done with drinking. We've kept the cocktail cabinets full of soda and lime and, your non-alcoholic gin and tonic still, but it's got no booze in it. And so I eradicated that association and replaced it completely with something else. Sorry, I went on a bit there.
No, I think that's really useful. Really useful, because a lot of people do. There are two camps, really. There's the camp of the people who want to keep the ritual and change the ingredient and sort of have something that's alcohol free, but there are others who will just not go there. And so it was interesting hearing your perspective.
And I think one of the key aspects of that is you've got to know what your ritual is. And that's for people who can say, when does the want and desire to intake alcohol hit me? And if I looked at the ritual and changed the ingredient, I'd be drinking lime and soda all day. And that's the problem. It's the ritual I wanted to break. If I break the ritual, I'll break the habit. If I break the habit, I'll break the connection. So you've got to find a new ritual. I had to find a new ritual. So that wasn't coming home and immediately pouring a gin and tonic. It wasn't thinking, I've just had an argument with a very independent and confident 9-year-old daughter, I'm going to have a gin and tonic. It wasn't Sunday lunch thinking, I needed to break that ritual. So I couldn't look at keep the ritual, change the ingredient. I needed to change so much associated with my associations with alcohol.
Yeah, really interesting. Really interesting. And so I think, hopefully what we're showing here is that there's no right or wrong, and you really just need to do what works for you. And even in the same household, we've approached it very differently when it comes to being alcohol free. So what would you say your sort of top highlights or benefits that you've seen since ditching drinking?
3 things. I think in exactly the same way, for those people that have given up smoking, for those people that have trained to achieve, like a marathon, or learned a new skill like playing the piano, every time somebody sits down at a piano, they're going to feel so proud. Every time you stand in an environment with dear friends who still smoke and you don't, you feel so proud. And I feel very proud I've stopped drinking. And I want that to be contagious for people. Run for pride, if nothing else. Don't run for you doing it for anybody else, but you're doing it for you, so you can be proud of what you've done. Second thing, unlimited energy. I have a lot of energy. And, in the past 10 weeks, I had a leg injury and I've been laid up fairly much, but it's been very frustrating because I feel like I have an extraordinary amount of focus and energy. And the last thing is conscious. You are conscious, you're engaging. I'm inquisitive, I'm curious, I'm interested. I've suddenly discovered, after not drinking for 11 months, that I don't have a single hobby left in my life. I used to go pheasant shooting. I used to play the piano a lot more. I used to cycle a lot more. I used to play golf a lot more. Now I don't do anything. And that has been slowly eroded by what I thought was this amazing hobby of pouring gin and tonic down my neck. So I'm really looking forward now, when the healing finishes in my leg, to go pick up my golf clubs, which I'm staying at in the corner of my office now, and go and have a round of golf and find those things that I was passionate about. And that's still part of a journey to go.
Yeah, and that's something that I think there are 2 things. It's purpose. People suddenly discover that they've got more of a purpose in life. And they also think about what are those passions and hobbies that they maybe used to enjoy that they'd stopped, or what are the new ones that they want to start doing. It always amazes me how many alcohol-free people I know who now do cold water swimming. And I don't know if that appeals to you at all, Hubby.
No. Not in any shape or form.
But that's something that seems to have become a bit of a trend. Okay, so all right, so closing thoughts, and I'm going to ask every guest this question. What does thriving alcohol-free mean to you?
Unlimited potential. You have to fight the not regret, but you have to fight the emotion that will come in where you think, what have I done with my life for 12 years or 15 years or 20 years? Certainly the last 4 or 5 years, I think, what have I done? Have I reached my potential? And the answer is definitely, not probably, not, well, maybe. No, it is definitely no. To thrive alcohol-free is that absolute knowledge that if I set my mind to it, I can achieve it. I've in the last year, I've written a book, I've started a podcast, I've launched a business, I have, unlimited potential, none of which I would have done, had the inclination to do, had the energy to do, had the focus to do, I know, without saying this thing is beginning to impede what I remember my potential was as a 23-year-old, a 24-year-old. I was unstoppable. And that's slowly been eroded. So to thrive is just really getting back on that track of saying, sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Might be hard work, might take a lot of hours, might be bloody expensive, might take me 10 years. but I'm going to do it. And it's not fobbing yourself off thinking I'm going to do it tomorrow, which is what you do when you start having a drink. What I did when I started having it, I'll do it tomorrow. I'm going to reward myself. I've just got out of bed. I'm going to reward myself. No, the potential you have, people listening to this, is unlimited when you have that clarity of thought and heart and mind, which only comes when you ditch drinking.
Yeah, amazing, because I do, I'm listening to you and just thinking, I've seen such a shift in the past 10
I thought you
months.
said I've seen such a shit.
Shift in the past 10, 11 months in you, and it is just night and day. And I'm extremely proud of you, because you have done something that I never thought you'd ever do, and I always thought I would be on my own on this alcohol-free journey, even though I could see how wonderful it was, and I was willing for you to join me.
There are lots of things in life, where people say, "Oh, you're an amazing speaker," or "You're very funny," or you go, "Oh no, oh please, oh no." When people say to me, "I'm really proud of you for not drinking," I say, "Thank you," because I am also very proud. So people, if nothing else, you take from listening to people who have gone through this transition of saying that's not important enough to ruin my life, then you must be bloody proud when you start that journey. Never mind when you finish it, because every day is a day where you decide to be focused and decide to be, living your potential. You're deciding to thrive. It's a decision you make every day. But when you start day one, when you make that decision, be proud. Be proud of yourself.
Yeah. And as we mentioned the corporate world and the fact that it's so ingrained in society, and obviously as a leadership coach, I'm sure you see this all the time with your clients, and I know you don't really talk about being alcohol free with them, but is there anything that you think has changed with your coaching now that you're alcohol free, or any more
definitely.
insight that you can? Yeah,
I think one of the things I'm beginning to see as a leadership coach is this whole question around what motivates people. Whether you're in leadership or fellowship, you have to decide how to motivate people and what motivates you, what motivates oneself. And traditionally, celebrations have motivated people. I was only talking to my sister yesterday. She lives in Tavistock in Devon. And she texted me to say, "I'm out on the annual Works karaoke do. Have you got any good songs I can sing in the microphone?" And I can see it. I can see, this is a charity, a firm charity, and they've taken everybody out to a karaoke bar, open bar. And I'm seeing more and more as a leadership coach that this is not motivating people anymore. What is motivating people is the acknowledgement, the recognition, and the reward for being authentically you. And so if I'm being authentically me, a night out on the lash is not going to motivate me to push myself to be loyal, to be engaged, to be passionate, to be trustworthy, to reach, to do above and beyond. A pint and a curry isn't going to do that. What is going to do that is knowing that where I follow or where I lead is recognized for me. And when you start asking those questions, you have to then say, what motivates me then? Because surely I'm worth more than a pint and a karaoke night and a beer and a curry. I'm worth flexible working. I'm worth remote working. I'm worth flexible holidays. I'm worth private healthcare. I'm worth child vouchers. I'm worth bring my child to school, bring my child to work because she's got a sniffle and I don't want to take an annual leave. That's what's motivating me. Therefore, that circle starts of, I'm going to be trusted to be myself. I'm going to be trusted to be authentic. So yeah, I've seen that shift, because no longer do people say, pay me an extra 10 grand a year and I'll be a better worker. No. Make me a better me and I will make your company better.
Really good. And are you seeing, you know, obviously in the corporate world, it's plugged a lot, well-being and mental health, and there is a focus on it. A lot of the companies are now really focusing on that and helping their leaders. Have you seen that being pushed in the corporate world, that sort of alcohol-free being part of the well-being and mental health
I've certainly seen mental health and
aspect?
well-being being taken extraordinarily seriously. This is it's not lip service, because more and more people are engaging with consultants and coaches and mentors. You know, I belong to a couple of government initiatives where people and small businesses are coming to upskill themselves. Yes, I am seeing it. The difficulty is, how do we deliver motivational quick wins without hedonistic associations? How do we get a team together outside the office to show and boost morale without doing it by getting people pissed really quickly or giving them a hedonistic experience? We're off laser questing, or we're going to do a bungee jumping, or, you know, it's very difficult. And I think that's the transition that we're going to struggle with. How is it when we flog people for, in the corporate world particularly, people are pulling 13-hour days, they're traveling a lot, they're spending a lot of time away from home, a lot of time away from their families. How do we then cram in on top of that something that people are going to find rewarding, worthwhile, and motivating? Because that takes more than a quick win. That takes more than 2 hours after work. That takes more than us at 4 o'clock saying, right, guys, let's log off early and nip down the nag's head. And that's where corporate world are really going to struggle. Why? Because clients traditionally are wooed or in the environment of immediate relaxation to create immediate results.
Mm. I think it's, I mean, what I've seen is the same. It's interesting because there has been a shift in terms of doing more alcohol-free events, such as let's go chocolate making, or let's make some, alcohol-free cocktails, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if you go to conferences, if you go to certain events, then red wine, white wine, water is really what's on offer. And so there does need to be a shift, I think, in that industry, in the sort of conference industry, events industry, when it comes to looking at alternatives.
And I think that's a society-wide thing.
Yeah.
I think that if you look at statistics in the news, I think it was on listening to the radio 2 or 3 days ago, and they're saying 400 pubs a month are closing in the UK. Now, that's not because people aren't going to the office. That's because people want something else.
Mm.
You know, people want something else other than that environment of a pub. And listen, I am not saying I used to run a pub and own a pub, as you know, cost us a fortune. But I'm not saying that this institution of pub is wrong. I'm saying it's changing. I'm saying what people want from this environment, what they want from the high street, what they want from relaxation is changing. People will go to a restaurant. We do it. We go to a restaurant. We'll spend 80, 90 pounds on dinner and have some still water. And that's what people want. So I think that it is going to change, but society is going to change it. Mm. The same argument as, teenage pregnancies in the 80s were sky high. They're now almost zero. Young people drinking now? Probably not. Mm. Are more young people learning to drive? Absolutely not. Less and less and less, because the world is small and public transport's getting better and we Uber our way around. Mm. So I think society will dictate it. For our generation, people listening to this between sort of 35 and 50, that's the tough transition. That's the one that, my 80-year-old parents had to make between landlines and mobiles, between home computers and work computers. That's a huge transition for people, and it's cultural. And that's where corporate world and people generally in industry are going to have to work really hard.
Yeah, really good points. Well, listen, this has been a really interesting conversation and great to chat to you.
Thank you.
So thank you for being on and being so open and honest with your experience.
It's a pleasure.
why don't you just sort of say, if people want to get in touch with you from a sort of leadership coaching perspective, how can they do that?
Sure. Yeah, they can get on the website, www.eagletransformationalcoaching.com, or you can email me at admin at eaglecoach.business, so you can advertise it. And listen, it's really important that people start to be comfortable with saying, I don't necessarily get what I want from continued professional development within the structures of work. And I would encourage anybody to reach out to any sort of mentorship, coaching, consultancy outside of that work environment so that you can start to ground yourself. You know, the people I've met in the business I've started in the last few years have been incredible and continue to be incredible. And we'll all make that change by being vulnerable and reaching out to what you do and what I do and what thousands of other people do in helping people overcome little obstacles in life that make them better and better every day. So yeah, I'd love it if people want to reach out and continue the conversation. I'm here.
Great, thank you. And so hopefully we've shown you that one thing I did want to mention just before I know I keep saying it's nearly the end, but one thing I do want to mention before the end is you can't change anyone. You can only change yourself. And for me, I just want to highlight this. And I'm hoping Nicholas will agree with me, I had no say in when or how or if Nicholas would stop drinking. There was no way, even if I wanted to, I could have made that decision for him. And with this sort of thing, you do it for you. Your job's not going to do it. Your wife or husband or partner, spouse is not going to do it. Your children are not going to do it. Nothing is going to do it other than you wanting to make that decision. And so if you have a niggle or a nudge or a feeling that actually potentially taking a break from alcohol for a little while could be beneficial, then go for it and see what happens. But please do not force yourself on anyone or judge anyone or try and get someone to change, because it's never going to happen. So you have to make the decision for you, and then everyone else will make their own decisions. But hopefully you'll be able to inspire them along the way as well. So thank you again, Nicholas. And
thank you very much.
I will speak to you soon.
Yes, I shall see you downstairs.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, leave a review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you'd like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my signature Thrive Alcohol Free Society group coaching program. If you are not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. When it comes to making a decision around drinking, I want to leave you with this quote from C.S. Lewis. There are far better things ahead than we ever leave behind. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.